I'm going to formally open. Thank you very much for coming. I really, really hope that you find it helpful. I certainly know that whatever Rabbi Jonathan tells us will be extremely helpful. Okay, here we go. Okay, thank you everyone for participating, and welcome to our talk. This is really an extremely important topic about managing our own anxiety and managing the anxiety of our children. I couldn't think of a better person to be doing this with. Rabbi Yehonason Jonathan Schwartz is a Rav of Adath Israel in Hillside, New Jersey. I had the pleasure of lecturing there one Shabbos, and I don't want to make the rabbi blush, but I got one of the nicest introductions there that I ever got in all my years of public speaking. And he's also the clinical director of the Center for Anxiety Relief. And I had the pleasure in Union, New Jersey, I had the pleasure of interviewing Rabbi Schwartz at the beginning of COVID. And the advice that he gave just in that 45 minutes, I've used at least 4 components of it regularly since. So without further ado, Rabbi Yehonason and Rabbi Jonathan, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate time, especially on short notice.
I very much appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and to express my appreciation, and I think so many others, for the fact that you're right out there at the forefront on our behalf to make sure that people who are dealing with tough stuff know exactly where to go and to have an address to turn to, Rabbi. And it's a huge, huge honor and privilege to even be thought of to help out in whatever small way I can.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so the questions have been coming in since I announced that you're coming. You know, the overall question is, how do I deal with the stress of having to say something that I don't know what to say? And we call it, one of my friends used to call it crunching paper. You know, when you're on the phone and you don't know what to say, so you pick up something and you go like that, so the person hears static. It's just a way of saying, I'm so sorry, I can't hear you. So we call it crunching paper in my friends and I. So most of us would just love to crunch some paper rather than talk to the kids about this. But Dr. Pelkowitz made us all feel very good last night, because he said that the best thing as parents, the nicest thing you could do is listen and to share that you also are groping for answers yourself. He told a phenomenal story of a woman who left religious observance that he knew professionally, and that was the most striking story of the evening for me. So he was talking about the response, and he said that that a woman who was a therapist that Dr. Pelkowitz had seen for many years at conferences and became friendly with, she left religious observance for 5 years. And she came back to a different conference, and just in chatting with Dr. Pelkowitz said that she returned to religious observance. And she said that the moment that changed her was when they had a Q&A session with Rav Hershel Shechter Shlita, the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva University. And the first 5 questions, I believe he said, 5 of the first few questions, he said, I don't know, I have to look it up and I'll get back to you. And she said each time that he said that, she felt a deeper connection with this humble man who was, such an incredible scholar, such an incredible Talmid Chacham, and had such humility. And she said she felt her faith returning when he kept saying, I don't know. I just don't know. I have to look it up and I'll get back to you with respect, knowing that he would, because he's a man of his word. I just found that just fascinating. So I just wanted to throw that out before we go, to maybe lower everybody's anxiety. And Dr. Pelkowitz would say, you don't need the perfect answers. But that doesn't help us completely, of course, because the kids are turning to us. Please, Dr. Schwartz, what do you recommend, and what do we all need to know?
So the first thing I think that I'd like to pick up on was the answer that the story that you just retold. I didn't have the privilege to join you last night, but I have the privilege of counting Rosh Shechter as my Rabbi. One of my other Rebbeim happens to be on the call now, and since I didn't ask him permission to identify him, I will just simply state straight out that one of the great wonders that I've had in my life is to be able to have had wonderful Rabbeim as guides. And very often when I've hit questions in my life that I didn't really know the answers to, and I didn't really have direction to go. This is personal. Jonathan Schwartz, speaking straight to Rabbi Horowitz.
Yankee Horowitz.
Yeah, straight. I have found that the Rebbeim that I have been close to, Rav Schechter, the other Rebbeus here, I didn't ask permission from, the greatest advice that has happened is that they've told me I'm listening. And that alone has also given me a tremendous amount of strength, and it helped me sort of break down my own thoughts and my own process. And I think that I have wonderful parents, and I think one of the things I love about my parents as well is that my parents have taught me to not to tell me exactly what to do and how to think, but rather instead to work them through, take an issue, to break it down, to listen, and then to be understood. So lesson number one is we're grappling, and yet at the same time we feel this huge pressure on us, huge, that we have to be there to guide our kids. Sometimes the first thing we need to do is blow out and remind ourselves that what is our role here? And our role as Rebbeim, as I've learned from my Rebbeim, as parents, as I learned from my parents, is to take a deep breath, slow down, and remember my role here is to listen, like Rabbi said, and also to confirm the element of safety. We're here, we're going to be safe together. All right, whatever it was, whatever it is, whatever's going to come down the pipeline, our focus, at least as we talk to kids, is going to need to be to remind ourselves that we want to convey a sense of understanding and a sense of safety. But, and I really want to put a big BUT in that situation. To me, the questions that that Dr. Pelkovitz helped us look at last night are really geared towards our kids and how we might want to talk to our kids. The questions and the focus I think I want to take in, at least initially when we talk today, is going to be for us to talk to ourselves. How do I talk to myself on the inside? I feel like broken. And unfortunately, and I went back to check just some of the last 10 years of times I've been asked to speak after tragedies, all different types of Yiddish tragedies. Unfortunately, it's becoming a very large genre. And one idea keeps coming up over and over and over again. And that is, how are people feeling? You're feeling, and they say this, broken, shattered. What's broken? What's shattered? So, Rebbe, I'll tell you the truth. What's broken and shattered is our view of the world. I thought the world worked in this one way, and I thought that everything was set up in this beautiful way, and I thought that this was going to be a way to proceed. And now I'm looking at it, and for whatever reason, right now, my view of the world as a perfect place is shattered, and I don't know where I'm going to go. That is where your anxiety is. And that piece is there right now in an initial stage. And the thing you want to do in that situation is take a look at it and see it as for what it is and hold on. When we break a glass on the floor, the first thing we have to do is notice that there's glass on the floor. And the second thing we got to do is sweep it up. And the beauty of a chasna is the fact that we always break a glass under a chuppah because a glass can be reblown. It can be reshaped. And the same thing is true with views of the world. Views of the world, glass can be reshaped. We'll develop something that'll be stronger. We'll develop an image of the world that we'll be able to handle. But in the shattered stage, when we don't know what's going to happen, that's where our anxiety comes in. That's very different than what our children are going to feel. And when we merge those two things together, and we see them as together, this first step is for us to take a step backwards and separate our anxiety as parents and what our kids need to hear from us and be able to put the two pieces together. And that's why what Dr. Pelkovitz said was brilliant. I don't know is a fantastic response. But it also helps to tell the kids, I don't know, but I can tell you this much. We're going to get through it together, and you are safe. And that I will guarantee.
that's really fascinating. How do we convey that message about safety? One of the things that's been fascinating, it's we all know from dealing with people who are suffering from the same stimulus, the same problem, is that people see it different ways. It's the same tragedy, but people see different components of it. And like even here, some people are just mourning the sense of innocence. I trusted people. Some people are embarrassed that they have to face their children, or they have to face their coworkers, or excuse me, their own struggles with faith. A few people posted on my social media. One of them sort of apologized for it, and they said, "So can I trust Dr. Palkowitz and Rabbi Horowitz?" The person, sorry?
Exactly. So let's look at each one of these different right. questions separately, because again, it highlights that idea that happens between us and our kids again.
Exactly. And I just want to point out before I'm looking forward to your response, I just want to mention that I messaged the person privately, and I said, "Thank you for being honest." I told her, I said, she apologized that she put it on the post. I said, "How could you not feel this way? If this is someone who you read the person's writing, so you were communicating for years, and now you find out it's a perfectly normal response." Go ahead,
right.
Please.
Right. So, and first of all, Rabbi just set up three different types of questions that people are asking. And I think it's crucial that first of all, we give room to respond and look at each person's different concerns. I often say, I'm on a little bit of a diet now. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more than a little bit, at least as far as my bet with my doctor. So there are a lot of people who diet for a lot of different reasons. And since I've been mentioning it to people, people have said to me, "Oh, you should do this and you should do that." And those are people who rush to give advice. And, it was interesting. One guy in my shul who noticed pulled me over and said to me, "Before I give you any advice, let me just ask you a question. Why are you dieting?" I said, "So funny. You're the first person who's bothered to ask me the question." There are different reasons why we do different things and feel different things. And although we all think we know, it's important for us to understand that although we think we know the effect of each individual is different, and therefore how it merges is different. So to the person who says, "I feel guilty," right? I feel guilty because this is the person that I brought, I brought this situation into my home, and I praised, right? So to that approach, my response has to be, okay, I need to take my own anxiety and take a look and be able to put that into a box and say to myself, okay, my issue is myself, and I feel I left a certain risk here. And then I want to look at it and ask myself, how much of a risk is there? My kids have read some books in the past, and I wonder out loud, are they really going to walk around and associate a book with an author, as opposed to a situation where I say to them, look, sometimes we have to make decisions and move certain things because the environment is not a healthy environment. I may have brought somebody, and I may have been affected as a kid when I read those books. It's directly different. I spoke to that person. He gave me or she gave me some advice in the past. And now I discover the person's a charlatan and a fraud. And I feel duped. I also feel anxious. Whom can I trust? Now I start not trusting anybody. Is that an overcorrection? Is that now all of a sudden I don't want to trust Rabbi Horowitz. I don't want to trust Dr. Schwartz. I don't want to trust Dr. Palkowitz. I don't want to trust anybody because I can't trust one person. That's a stage where a person goes into a protective mode. And what usually happens in those situations is we take a deep breath and we tell people, don't make massive changes, but be aware of the urge to want to make that massive change. Understand that there's a natural desire to look for safety, And you may need to find that safety. But hold on and say to yourself, we need to go somewhere before we make absolute, way far-reaching decisions that go beyond the scope of where we're up to. Because if you can get that place for yourself, it just makes it easier to re-blow that glass. If you never touch glass again because you broke one on the floor, then all of a sudden you will never get a chance to re-blow it until years go by and you can get comfortable being around glass. On the other hand, if you insist on putting the glass together while it's still on the floor and picking it up with your bare hands and not with your eyes closed, you're going to wind up with some nasty cuts on your hand. So what we want to teach people to do in this situation is take a step back, take an internal measure, pay attention to your thoughts, take a deep breath, and then note what your thoughts are and how they may be different from the people around you whom you're talking with and to. If you can understand your own thoughts, you're going to develop your own approaches, and that's going to confirm a safety and at the same time a turn in the right direction.
So that would be the first response. You identified, three different areas that we're grappling with. The process would be the same with all.
Yes, well, each one's going to, to the person who says, I'm never going to talk to her about her, I'm not going to trust anybody in life. It becomes a very, very scary life. I worked with somebody after COVID started. The person said, I will never leave my home again, right? Never leave my home again. Fellow who's very concerned about germs. He's very concerned about contamination. And then, he discovered that being home all day was not a healthy thing. And he was doing Zoom sessions back and forth. And finally, with the advent of vaccines, he got to the point where he said to himself, I can't live my life like this. Okay, good. If I told you how long it took for him, right, to get to that point, I think most of us were already out and about at that point. And he said to me when he finally got it, he said, I can't believe it took me this long. I said to him, the world has COVID in it. There are people who get COVID. It does happen. And there are times in life that there are other dangers in the world. And sometimes, unfortunately, those dangers are close to home. And what we learn to do when we face dangers in our life is we learn to take protection and correction, caution. But we also learn to do it in a way where that caution doesn't impede on other cautions. Being stuffed up in an apartment all day is not healthy. And never being able to be a social creature again is also not healthy.
Yeah, it's interesting. What you're saying is very interesting, because I mentioned to the person, I actually plan on addressing this publicly. I was thinking of even writing it in an article, even though it's a pretty bold thing to talk about. People's level of trust in myself and folks like us when we see a different one. What I told this person was that he said, how could I trust again? I said, if trust means that you give folks like me a pass on questionable behavior, and I did a short talk on the halo effect, which is that we make judgments about people and we automatically assume that they can never do anything wrong. I said, I don't want you going back to that. I don't think it's healthy to go back there. I said, if trust means, depends how you're defining trust. If trust means that you're saying that you have carte blanche. I listened to you, Dr. Pelkowitz. You're a wonderful person. Rabbi Horowitz, whoever it is, she happened to address it online to the two of us. But I said, if trust means that, I didn't say this publicly yet till now, but if trust means just trusting whatever we do, you shouldn't go back to there. If we do things if we violate norms and boundaries, and again, I know nothing about this specific situation, but if past this prologue, and we've seen that people get away with incredible violations of boundaries and appropriate boundaries, and everybody looks at it and says, well, it's him or her, so it's kind of okay. So I think that maybe that trust gets reshaped a little bit. The glass gets reblown, as you said. That's a great analogy. So you have this overarching trust in everything. Maybe you just reblow that glass in a smaller box and say, no, if you do things that I would be afraid if somebody else would do it, I would say something, then I would say something if anyone does it.
Right. So, Rebbe, I would add that, part of when I mentioned the shattered world, right? That like the shattered class. There's also a shattering that takes place of a person, which it sort of dovetails off you. I lived my life with a certain mindset. I thought that this was okay, right? B'shriras libi elich, right? No, 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 no. If part of the reblowing of the glass is that you're going to reblow that, you're going to reblow it, right? And you're going to reshape your thinking, and how you get involved. Yes, I agree with you 100%. If a person comes out of a traumatic situation and says, okay, I'm going to develop trust to have a conversation. I'm going to develop trust to critically listen to people and decide whether their advice works for me or not, right? I'm going to find a place to bounce ideas off, to make sure that things that I hear make sense to me and apply to my situation. And I'm going to take more reins in my own life to be able to do that glass blowing, to create that involvement in the world. And if I can do those things, yeah, that'll be part of the ability to bring down that temperature and bring down that anxiety. I will discover that, wait a second, there are things I can do. I can take certain steps and I can bring it down in the process.
And what would your advice be, Doctor, for the garden variety anxiety, meaning that this was a specific anxiety about trusting people in the future, but like the anxiety of having to talk to your children about this. The kids are coming home in an hour. I don't know if they found out in school yet. Should I tell them now? Should we talk about it? Should I let them talk about it? What happens if they ask me a question? What happens if I'm stuck? I just start getting tongue-tied.
So let me first get one step in, and then we'll get into this step. First thing is, before our kids are coming home from school, there is so much chatter around traumatic stories. I'm not getting into which stories and whatever. Obviously, we're here to discuss one, but it could be anything. We are surrounded in an all-news world, and forget about media. There's social media, there are group chats, there's people outside waiting at the bus stop to pick up all the kids, and everyone's talking. I heard this, you heard that. The first thing you got to do is limit the amount of time you're spending on it during a day. Because if you're spending if it's every single WhatsApp, every single minute, and then on top of that, you're on the Yeshiva World, and then you're reading, half the time you're reading the same story 4 times over, and you think it's getting worse by the minute. You have your news step, you have your time. And if you become drowned in it, you're not going to be ready to handle the questions when your kids come home. So the first thing is set a limit on the amount of news coverage. How much time am I spending on it? Doesn't mean that I'm telling you that you should walk away from the news, but to be immersed in it in real time, 24 hours a day, is going to break you down. So limit it, set amounts of time that you're going to spend on it. And then you'll be armed to say, okay, this is what's out there, but you'll also get work done. And you'll be able to go shopping for Shabbos. And you'll be able to listen to the kids who are talking about their other crises in life. So the limitation is huge, and you will feel like you have some control over yourself.
That was one of my Dr. Schwartz, Rabbi Schwartz. That was one of my takeaways from your talk during COVID on anxiety, where you were kind enough to come on. I try to walk away from any person, professional I interact with at least an idea or two. And that was one of the primary ones, is that you encouraged, said you listen to the COVID news on TV, or you watch it online or whatever it is. Pick a time and listen as much, watch a bit till you have all the information and then just turn it off. That was really fantastic advice. It lowered.
So do you remember what you did for me afterwards?
I do
You
not.
sent me this beautiful picture. It's just on the wall opposite my computer at home of a beautiful wide expanse that after our talk last time, you had gone for a walk daily with the Rebbitzin, and you took this beautiful shot. You said, it was there. You went for a walk up and down. It's somewhere, you know which one I'm talking about.
I figure a golf course.
It was a golf course, right? It was a beautiful drive, and I just hung it up over there over my computer.
That's great.
Because I said to myself, I can look at this picture. And I felt like I was up in Muncie with you, right? I just saw the air right over there. It was gorgeous, and it really was wide. I felt less closed in because and the news does that, and so therefore, again, we need to take that step. And it's just like it was true with COVID. It's even more true now because it's closer to home, so to speak, in the fact that in our heads, COVID was terrible. But everybody was in the boat, so we felt like we understood it. Now, this is our personal shattering. When we get into our own personal shattering, now all of a sudden, it makes us feel like for some reason, this is more unexpected. Let's talk about what I say to myself, the kids are coming home when? At some point, half an hour, I'm out at the bus stop. I don't know what to do. I don't know whether to talk to the kids or not talk to the kids. Well, first things first. In your own head, if your kids come to you, what do you want to tell them? I have a basic story, right? I know what I know, and I want to listen to them, and I'm going to be able to respond to their concerns. And that's the first thing you want. I'm the adult here. I'm going to be ready to hear what my kids say. And one of the things that you talk about all the time is talk to your kids in general, right? I always say that the example of, do you know what your kid's favorite soft drink is, right? If you talk to your kids, what happened in school today? What are people talking about? Older kids, what's the latest hack? I try hard every day, no matter where the schedule is. And I think I got this advice from you once. I certainly have heard it from my Rabbi. Try to spend time with each of your kids every day. Every kid needs the same amount of time, right? Just to go through their day. Then they set different points in time to be able to talk. And my wife is gewaldic. She's fantastic. But every now and then, I like to make sure that they talk to dear old dad also, right? To make sure that dear old dad knows what's going on with them too. So I can't imagine anybody in this room or in this listening to our talk would say, wait a second, I'm going to go out there first and then feel unprepared. Let me first talk to my kids and see, hey, what's the latest? Your kids will laugh with you. And yet, at the same time, you've created the open environment. And then it's funny because what winds up happening is some kids will pop it up in one way. Moshe said on the school ground that there's some big story about some guy who wrote one of those books that we have at home. Right? Mommy, it's not true, right? Tati, it's not true. Okay, that's one question. And the responsibility is take a deep breath and say, and get ready to respond in a direction that you want to respond. Again, you're going to respond to your kids. You're going to respond to their concern, and you're going to respond to their safety, and you're going to ask them to follow up with their questions. This is not a drasha, although depending which minion you're in, sometimes you get follow-up questions on the spot over there too. But this is not a message from the mountain, right? You're in that position because you're in your zone. You know your goal is to show your kids, and by the way, you'll be empowered in that process. Your child comes home and says, okay, we need to talk. What's up with this? Well, what's up with the situation over here? Everyone's talking about it. How come you didn't tell me? Different type of question.
Yep.
Okay. Immediate thought, oh my gosh, I must be the worst parent under the sun because all the other parents are talking to their kids. But I went to listen to Rabbi Horowitz and I started to listen and talk these ideas out. Take a deep breath. You're still an excellent parent. You're a top-notch parent. Okay, so let's hear what you've heard. Let's talk about what you've heard, and then I'll fill in with, where I am at your, and we'll address it together. We'll share our questions. We'll work through our answers. It's a different approach. You want, the way that you approach a 7-year-old and the way that you talk to a 17-year-old, hopefully will be radically different because the level of maturity is different. And by the way, I hope your kids have another book on their shelves at home. And this one, Rabbi Horowitz can give you directly because the Karasik edition is in English as well. And I think that, sometimes we need to be able to remember that there are many books we have in our home. And sometimes it's important to make sure that the books, they don't just sit together on the shelf, but they get along together on the bookshelf as well. And so, to a younger child, you may want to spend some time just going over, some of the safety rules. Okay, so we'll review safety. And we'll know that mommy and tati are always here to talk to you when you feel unsafe or if you hear something that's uncomfortable, right? You can come to us. We can sit down. We can make it, and we can make sure that nobody ever makes you feel uncomfortable, right? Because that's our job as mommies and tatis. That's what we do.
It's interesting. I honestly, I haven't mentioned our safety book throughout this time. I do talk about the videos that we have that are free because I really don't want to come across that I'm pitching something that that we did. But now that the doctor brought it up, we have child safety videos. For those who aren't from Eretz Yisrael, we just did it with Hebrew subtitles. It's on my social media. It's on all of the different various outlets. It's a 9-minute clip, and you can listen to really the main components of effective child safety. I'm also doing a series here, excuse me, on my Instagram page, but I'm going to be disseminating the videos of it. I've never done it this way before, but I'm doing like a 5-6 part series called "How Do They Get Away with It?" How do abusers get away with it? And I'm going to be going beyond the general child safety education to give you a window into how these folks get away with it in public. And once you learn how they get away with it, you'll get angry, but you'll be much better educated. And, they say, to catch a thief, you have to think like a thief. So we're talking about the halo effect now. We're going to be talking about the theory of the just world, which the Rabbi mentioned about Rabbi Jonathan mentioned about we expect certain things to go a certain way. This research, the theory of the just world means that, excuse me, that you don't want to believe that this could happen. And I saw some stunning research that says that the theory of the just world is more pronounced among religious folks of any persuasion, of people of faith, no particular religion, but people of faith are more likely to believe in a just world. So they're more likely to be disappointed when things don't go the way we hope they do.
Rabbi, that's excellent. And it segues into a second point that I really think can't be underscored enough. And that is that while we're doing all this for our kids, and that's really been the focus that a lot of this conversation has gone, there is a parallel process that I think that our listeners need to undergo as well. And that is sitting down with your own thoughts. Pull out a sheet of paper. Mark down what your thoughts are. It's wildly different from what your kids' thoughts are. Kids worry first about their own safety. They want to know that they're okay. We are interested in our own safety, but we're also interested in asking, Eicha, how did it happen? How did we get to this situation? What was I thinking that brought me, that brought this situation? There may be guilt. There may be other concerns. I think it's important for a person, any person dealing with any crisis, especially a traumatic one, to know his or her thoughts. And by the way, not to be afraid to find the right people to speak them out with. Sometimes your best chavrusa is a blank sheet of paper, because on a blank sheet of paper, you can sit down and write it out. I mean, I'm sitting here right now. You can't see it because of the background. As Rebbe's talking, I'm sitting here making my own notes of things that, wait a second, I'm thinking this way. I wanted to do. And this is a small scale. And this presentation, our talk is anything but traumatic. But when we're doing and dealing with our own thoughts, being able to take them out, put them on a piece of paper in front of us, perhaps speaking them out from our own concerns with somebody we trust, will help us out. A number of years ago, after the Kletsky episode, I had a patient of mine come into the office, and she said to me that she was having an awful time sleeping at night, as she did not live in Brooklyn. Did not know anybody associated with the trauma situation. And she said, I feel terrified. And I asked her, what do you feel terrified about? What are your thoughts? She said, I don't know. They don't make any sense. He said, there's a big difference between I don't know and they don't make any sense. When you're working through thoughts, they don't have to make sense. What they do is they make anxiety. Thoughts make anxiety. And the fact that you're telling yourself, I don't allow myself to have these thoughts, and they're happening anyway, is just re-traumatizing yourself again. So I said to her, do me a favor. Have your thoughts. Here's a sheet of paper. Carry it with you. Bring it back, and we can talk about it if you want. She came back the next week, and she said, I did it. She brought back a notebook, and 5 pages were already written double-sided.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because she said, one of the thoughts that jumped out at me, because as she was talking through them, was she shared some of her concerns with a friend of hers, in her neighborhood. And the friend said, you're not allowed to think that way. And she wrote on her thought, she says, and now on top of it, I'm feeling guilty and traumatized that I'm doing something I'm not allowed to do. And I asked her, does what your friend said, does that resonate with you? She said, it resonated. I had the trauma. I said, does that make sense though? She says, well, obviously not, because I'm having the thought. I said, so why don't you look at the thought? She says, but I'm not allowed to. I said, who says?
She did.
She said, her friend did. Wait. She stopped. She says, you mean I'm allowed to think what I think? Yes. Now, you may not want to when you talk it out. And that's what happened with the 5 pages. As she went through them, she said, okay, I understand this and I see this and I know what I'm concerned about here. And when she was done, she had organized 5 pages into about 5 thoughts. They were, 5 basic themes that were coming up. And then she decided how she wanted to take perspective on each of the 5 themes, right? And one of them was, I do want to take the opportunity to, like you said before, to let myself actually have thoughts. I'm not bound to thinking because somebody else told me I can or can't think that way. It was huge, and it helped her a ton.
Can I offer something? Because I don't know that this is in the public square, because I heard it privately from Rabbi Moshe David Tendel. He was a Rav in a Rabbi in Monsey for 55 years in a shul right near our home, and he was a son-in-law of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein Zatzal. So we once met at a shiva home, and it was a very young person had died, and Rabbi Tendler said that his shver Rabbi Moshe rarely spoke at a shiva home. The way the halacha says, he should wait till the person speaks. But the people asked him to say something. They said, Rabbi, please give us some words of comfort. We lost our life here, So he related the following. I didn't see it printed anywhere, but it was so meaningful to me. So another Rabbi Tendler told us to the Avelim at the house that we were in together. He was relating a story that had happened 30 years earlier with Rav Moshe. So Rav Moshe asked the following question. He said that we make by a funeral, by a sad news like this, we make a dayan ha'emes. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech, blessed be you, God. Dayan ha'emes is you're a truthful judge. So that means obviously we're not pleased with this at all. This is a terribly bitter pill for us to swallow. But we accept the patch. We accept your din, this harsh din that you gave us. We accept it. That's a dayan ha'emes. When good news happens, we make a tov ha'metiv, thanking Hashem for who does good and is good. So if Moshe said, we know we're supposed to believe that everything is for the good, right? We're supposed to believe, kol man da'avad achman l'tavad, whatever Hashem does is ultimately for the good. So he said, if we profess to feel this, to think this way, and that's what a observant Jew should feel, that everything Hashem does is for a reason, and even if we don't understand it. So why don't we make a tov ha'metiv at a funeral? Did you ever hear this by any chance in the name of Rav Moshe?
No, this is great.
I'm sorry?
This is great. Any answers?
Brilliant. It was so profound. I asked a few students of the Talmidim of Rav Moshe if they said it seemed that they had, he just said it on the spot. So he said that our Chachamim, our sages, and their great wisdom, exactly what you were talking about, Rabbi Schwartz, exactly what you were talking about. He said, the Chachamim, our sages, gave us the permission. This woman felt she didn't have permission to think a certain way. They gave us a permission to understand that, yes, I know that in some world I'm supposed to feel this way, but right now, this is a dead person in our family, right? This is not a tov ha'metiv to me right now, even though I know I'm supposed to feel this way, but I don't. So how could I say something that I don't mean? So the sages, the Chachamim, put this in the mix. They put this in the sauce. That we have, it's perfectly fine. In fact, it's normal. They didn't say, and Rav Moshe didn't say this. I'm just adding this on my own, but with humility, because they didn't say, well, check this box. You should say tov ha'metiv if you're feeling a crisis in faith. To say a dayan ha'emes. No, everybody says dayan ha'emes. And then I say we all expect that's normal. It's normal for us to feel this confusion that we all feel about this situation. And other times we get disappointed in people, in leadership positions, and we have questions of why bad things happen to good people and the like. Rav Moshe said clearly that the Chachamim gave us the permission to feel this way and that we shouldn't feel guilty about it. I thought it was just...
It's massively profound. It reminds me of a comment that I've heard from Rav Shechter, from my Mashgiach, from Rav Yosef Blau, in the name of Rabbi Soloveitchik, who similarly said that we have a whole stage of grieving that is a pre-stage of Avelus.
Right.
It's called Aninus. And what's the purpose of Aninus? So Soloveitchik used to say that Aninus, when we can't make other brachas, we can't do certain things, because that overwhelming sense of grief doesn't give us the opportunity to say those brachos b'simcha. And so there's an Anita stage where it's so raw that we take a moment, we take some time, focus here. Misha meso mutal lafana, when somebody is in that pre-burial stage where things are all up and down in the air. First, find your safety. Then we'll deal with the structure to be able to put things together. And it fits, again, similar. Gedolei Torah, wow. Boy, did they understand things. Much. They were some of the best thinking therapists of all time.
And when I didn't say it to Dr. Pelkowitz last night, we were kind of against the clock, and he was saying such wisdom. He was sharing such wisdom. I didn't want to. Not that you're not, but when he was talking, I'm sorry about that one. No, but he said he was talking about what you spoke about at the beginning, and he did, about the luxury of saying I don't know, and how comforting it is to people to hear that. One of my Rabbeim used to say, one of my teachers would say that Rashi, the main commentary on Chumash and Gemara and Talmud, He, in several places in Chumash, in the Bible, it says, any I don't know what this is teaching us. We have one in one of these Pashias now, right? Aim Yaakov Esav, the mother of Yaakov and Esav, and it says, I don't know what this teaches us. So my Rebbe said, if he didn't know, why did he have to say he didn't know? If he wouldn't have written something, we would understand that he didn't know. So he's telling us that, I have an open question, feel free to explore yourself. And the biggest message was that he said, it's okay to say, I don't know. That it was giving us the comfort of not knowing things and having an open question that we want to resolve. That was that.
Those are two amazing insights. And they're very, very important to highlight. If I can just step back and repeat them back, because there are people there. Point number one is, feel free to explore it yourself. Any Yodea, I don't have to have the set answer. Wow, that's in of itself gewaldic. And then second of all, any Yodea, I don't know, and I'll get back to you. I'll look into it. Two huge messages, and both majorly applicable over here.
Right, that this is what we can tell our children. We don't understand this, and and that it's okay that we don't understand. That's really the I think that would really be.
And we can tell ourselves it's okay for us not to know. Around here, not my background here, but behind me in my office, I have a big rule. I call it the Maharsha rule. What's the Maharsha rule? The Maharsha rule I have in my office is, in the same way that nobody looks at the great commentary, the Maharsha, and the Gemara, and says, oh, that guy, he's not worth studying, because everything he ends with is, it's Harach Iyun, we need to look into it again. Or Dochak, it's tough, right? And we don't walk away saying, that guy, we're never going to look at that commentary. We have to learn to say about ourselves. Also, Harach Iyun, we need to think about that a little bit further. And realize that that's not a statement of minimization and weakness on our part. It's actually a statement of greatness. And that's fantastic. And if we can give ourselves that room, especially when we feel our backs are against the wall because of our kids, and instead say to ourselves, no, we're not backed against the wall. Our Gedolim of previous generations, our Rashis, our Marshas, and yes, our Gedolim of the current generations, the 20th, 21st century, then it gives us the room to say, why do we have to be bigger than they? We also have room, and it builds us up to be able to say, okay, now I can create a system that works for me. It's excellent, Rabbi. That's huge.
Any final thoughts, Rabbi Schwartz?
One, and it's, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Not only for myself, I'm part of a larger organization of people who are also grappling. It's called Klal Yisrael, right? On so many different sides, and watching the fact that somebody is standing here and saying, let's talk about this in a safe place and give people the avenues. We can't thank you enough for this and for so many different things you're doing. And two, the other comment I want to make is, keep talking. Keep talking, keep thinking, take the time out. We will get through this together as a and we will reblow that glass, and it will again be a good, solid, huge, if not to the way it was, it will come out stronger and better as a result, and we'll be able to use it and be Mekadesh Shmo Barabim, to use it to make a Kiddush with. So thank you, Rabbi.
I just want to say I actually made a short video with that theme called "We'll Get Through This Together." I'm actually writing an op-ed piece for Times of Israel, the Jerusalem Post, called "We Will Get Through This Together." It's because maybe I had more afikomens than Rabbi Schwartz did. My grandmother used to have a saying: if somebody passed away of old age, they would say, "From was ist gestorben? What did he die from?" So she would chuckle and say, "Tzifil afikomens." He ate the afikomen. Isn't it great? It's such a great line. So tzifil afikomens. We eat the afikomen at the Pesach Seder every year. So if somebody's 90 years old, they ate 90 afikomens, so that was her line, so I ate more afikomens than you did, Rabbi Schwartz. And, having lived through some of these some of these experiences, without mentioning names, some of the high profile scandals that have happened in this way, where people, betrayed public trust. And I think of one in particular. Each one of them, in my opinion, especially one particular one, there was a very high profile trial in New York. I think the community moved forward many years in child safety in those couple of months, because people were talking about it, and we encouraged them to talk to the children, and not because that dialogue brought about so I'm not just saying pie in the sky, wow, it's all going to be great. It's not just what we're saying that we'll get through this. I believe that this very painful episode, if we continue to talk, as Rabbi Schwartz said, we could talk to our children, we reevaluate how we think about public people, how much space, what we should or shouldn't, at what point should we step in and say, this is not right. We'll be a healthier place. We'll be at a healthier place and create a safer homes and safer communities. Rabbi Schwartz, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for listening. I hope you found it helpful. Please, when the video is posted, please feel free to be an ambassador for these messages. We all have social media. It's relatively easy to do. Send along if you found it meaningful and you found it helpful for yourself. Share it. I think that's something that's also very important. This social media and these venues give us an opportunity to create a level of dialogue that didn't exist just a few years ago. So it allows peer-to-peer learning. It's not just a sage on the stage where you're listening to me. We discuss among each other, and it's a very healthy process. Thank you, everyone. I hope you found it helpful, and be well, everyone. Thank you again, Rabbi Schwartz.
Thank you, Rabbi. Kol tov.